Hello, everybody. Welcome to Manifestation Kitchen. And today we have the amazing Carly Mellors-Blair. My girl.
Thank you.
Welcome to Manifestation Kitchen. I'm so excited to have you on.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. So first things first, we met, I can't believe it, but it's over 2 years ago.
Seriously, where did that time go?
And I just remember this gorgeous girl in these funky skirts and just dancing her way. So we met at a Gary V event.
Business spread event, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, it was. And it's so crazy because I made a number of friends from that event, which is really funny because I was sat at the back and I was going through my journey at the time. So I was sat at the back and everybody else I knew was right at the VIP end and stuff. But you guys all came to the back and I made such amazing friends with you guys. So thank you for the friendship.
Again, it was kind of just like energy connect,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, it's kind of like, oh my God, energy. I think it was your crystal that I was drawn to at first, because you know that I love a crystal.
Right. Yes.
So I think you had a beautiful, I can't even remember what you had on now, but you had a beautiful crystal on, and it was your crystal that called me first. And then it was all from there.
Yeah, that crystal has a story to tell, that's for sure. For those of you that are interested about the crystal, it was a moldavite crystal, and it was it was moldavite. I've lost it now, believe it or not. But
because it was time to move on, right?
Right, it had done its job. And actually I lost it after I'd been anointed as an oracle in Africa and stuff. So literally it just disappeared. Yeah. So but it was a moldavite in a heart, in a metal heart and stuff. So yeah, it was stunning. So Carly, you have been, I mean, I read your bio and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that you've been doing this job for almost 20 years, but most importantly, you've actually healed over 30,000 people.
That's hands-on. That isn't kind of the energetic stuff that I've done. You know, somebody asked me a couple of years ago and said, do you know how many people you've actually, how many lives you've touched? And I was like, no. Like, well, maybe you should actually have a look, kind of do your calculations. And I was like, how do you go about doing that? So they basically took my schedule and had a look and did this whole kind of mathematical breakdown, which was way above my head, and came back and said, you've actually had your hands contact on 30,000 people to date. And that's without kind of like the live stuff that I do now or the workshop stuff that I do. And it's like, that blew my mind. It really did. Humbled me hugely. But yeah, great number, right?
Yeah, absolutely stunning. I mean, I read it and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, 30,000. I'm so glad that you explained how you calculated it, because I was like, I have no idea how she would have done that. And that's excluding anything that's been remote, distance, energy, or people who you've healed just by walking past you and what have you. You know what I mean? Now, I'm so pleased to have you on here, because the premise of Manifestation Kitchen, it was all about helping women. For me anyway, it's all about me helping women in the corporate world who are feeling stuck, losing their voice, and just empowering them to find their purpose again. And that comes from healing with food, word, touch. And I've extended it to movement for this podcast, so I can get people in who help with body movements and everything else. And one of the things that really drew me to you is in Nature's Pharmacy on Facebook, because I'm a member on there. And well done. You've got about 1,500 people on there. I remember when you started that group not so long ago, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, but most importantly, one of the reasons why I came to you was because I was like, I'd love to hear your story, because there's an amazing background there that I know in your bio. It tells me like a little teeny weeny bit of it. So I'd just want to hear your story, and then we can talk about what you do in Nature's Pharmacy.
Okay. Well, where do I start? Let me start with the diagnosis and basically waking up paralyzed. Okay. At the time, I was a grade A student at Loughborough University. I was studying for my bachelor's degree in communications and political science. And I had 2 jobs. I had a beautiful 6-month-old baby boy. And I was like striving thriving, kind of like, this is what I want to do. And I woke up paralyzed. Wow. All down the right-hand side of my body. Wow. Paralysis, Bell's palsy, so half of my face had just completely melted. And I couldn't see very well, and I couldn't talk. And I kind of brushed it off, right? And it's like, no, it'll be fine. Come on, Carly, get up. And it's not until my mum phoned me, and she said, this is like 10 o'clock in the morning. Are you drunk? And I was like, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. With a 6-month-old. I don't think so. And she said, right, stay there, don't move. And that kind of, I didn't realize that it was as bad as it was. And then my partner was like, okay, Carly, you need to look at your face. And I was like, why? So when they kind of came in and they showed me, they immediately thought and said that I'd had a stroke. So I rushed off to hospital, and I was in bits, I'll be honest. I'd not been ill as such up until that point. So once I got into hospital and they'd done all the scans and stuff, and they said to me, yeah, unfortunately, you've had a stroke. I was 23, and I just didn't have time to have a stroke. Who's got time to have a stroke?
I like that. You have time to have a stroke.
I've got loads. I've got like essays that need to be handed in. I've got stuff that I need to do.
You want to change the world.
Say that again, sorry.
You want to change the world.
Right, all the way through. Yeah. And that was the whole point of me getting into politics, because I wanted to be an investigative journalist and kind of like really get into the system and just expose it from within. Well, so anyway, I was in hospital for about 2 weeks having all sorts of invasive tests, and I was getting progressively worse. And anybody that knows anything about having a stroke, you kind of, you have the stroke and then it leaves you where you are, but I was getting worse. So they said, okay, you've definitely not had a stroke, which, I was absolutely pissed at that, because they'd been poking me and prodding me. I'd been on a stroke ward with so many of the patients that were like in their 70s, 80s, 90s. I couldn't even go to the toilet on my own. I had to like be fed and taken to the toilet and be bathed, and you've had me there for 2 weeks, and now you're telling me it's not a stroke. So I was transferred over to a neurology department, and that's when the tests really ramped up, and it came back. Well, I was sat with my then mother-in-law in this room, and the specialist came in, and this is how he delivered it. Okay, he went, so Carly, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is you do not have any tumors on your brain. It's not cancer. The bad news, however, is there are a number of lesions. I'm afraid you have multiple sclerosis. Any questions? I was like, multiple who? I'd never heard of, and I'd heard of multiple sclerosis, but I didn't know anybody with the condition. Didn't know what it meant. And he basically told me to quit university. He told me that never have any more children, because that would be the worst thing ever. He told me that I'd never get a job because my health was going to be so unstable from here on in. And basically my only hope of a somewhat normal life would be to take a barrage of medication that hadn't been tried and tested. So at 23, I'm half paralyzed, half of my face is melted, and he's kind of giving me this prognosis of my future that, just like, well, you might as well quit. So I took a very, very deep breath and said, thank you very much, but 2 fingers to you. He clearly didn't know me at all. So I switched into research mode, because that's my forte. And I spent the next 5 to 6 days just going in on everything I could find on MS. And by the end of it, I had a list. I probably had about 100 questions. And when the consultants, and they came back in force, as they do, because they wanted me to trial a new drug, which is called beta interferon. It's not new anymore, but it was back then. And they couldn't answer 70% of my questions. I mean, there were so many, well, we don't know. There hasn't been the long distance studies on this. And I'm like, okay, so it's going to leave me with, I need to have a lung function test to have this. I've got to have a liver function test to have this. I've got to have a heart test to have this. So presumably this medication that isn't guaranteed to stop, reverse or halt MS could leave me with liver issues, lung issues and heart issues.
Or worse.
Or worse. And I was like, well, surely, Carly, that's better than being paralyzed. No. So against, and I get it, you know, my family, my friends, the majority of people are like, listen to the doctors. Sure. They know best, you know, that they are the professionals, Carly. You know, you don't know anything about this. But my gut said to me, don't do this, because there is another way, you know.
Always trust your gut.
Oh,
always trust your gut. Yeah.
Seriously. So, I refused the medical intervention that they offered me, the long-term medical intervention that they offered me, and began on a 2 decades worth of healing. You know, it took me 10 years to reverse the condition, halt everything and reverse it. But when I say hard work, you know, I think taking control of your own health is never an easy job anyway. But when you're facing something like this that they say you could die from, you know, you may never walk again, you could be blind. It's the scariest thing ever. And I think the medical bullying that you get, that how dare you challenges, you know, was immense. So I looked at everything, my diet, my relationships, my work, everything basically stood on its head and changed. But it took me 10 years, you know, and now we're 21 years since that initial diagnosis.
Wow. And there you stand, the queen in her kingdom. Isn't that just, I didn't know this about you. So I'm so glad I asked that question, because it's funny. I don't know if you experience this at all, but with my clients, people come to you, they want healing in some form, and they think it's going to happen like that.
But that's the kind of way society has nurtured us, you know, that we're not looking at long term, we're not looking at the work that needs to go in. We want instant gratification, you know. And it's the same with food, it's the same with study, it's the same with healing, you know. Is there a pill I can take? No. There isn't.
No, it takes a long time, and I'm so glad that you talk about a couple of decades later, 10 years to maybe sort of like just put your head above the sand. That's how long it takes to heal, and it's a gradual process. But once you commit to starting, is the most important thing. That's just an amazing. I seriously didn't know that about you. You see someone as gorgeous and as agile as yourself, and as eloquent and successful, and well, you do, and you know, you know there's a story, but you never anticipate it's that story.
Yeah. To be fair, my story's pretty unique, but it's you know, a lot of people do look at me now, especially those that knew me from then as well. And they're just like, how did you do that? And I'm like, hard freaking work. Right. You know, there isn't any aspect of me that I didn't get on my hands and knees and scrub. And, you know, for want of a better analogy, that's literally what I had to do. Like, get down in the cellar and look at all that shadow work and that stuff that I've been keeping from being a really young girl, you know, and it all had to come out and to be healed.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I'm actually doing some shadow work on myself at the moment. And it's really interesting because even, you know, whether you've done this work for no matter how many years you've done this work for, there comes a time when you go, okay, now's my time to address this. And it's so painful. You want to vomit half the time, because you don't you know what you're creating, but you don't know what you're creating. You don't know how. It's
like Pandora's box, right? It's like until you open that lid, you don't know how deep it goes, you don't know how dirty it's going to get or what it's going to bring to the surface.
Yep. And I've taken it little pockets at a time in my journey.
Right.
Yeah, little pockets at a time, and you get to one. And it's so funny how you leave the most painful one to the end, because you're like, we'll deal with that later. We'll come to that later. What's really interesting, and again, I don't think a lot of my listeners would have heard this, but you talk about addressing everything in your life. You looked at your relationships, you look at your food. A lot of people would look at food but not necessarily look at relationships, and and it's so important, because I'm all about energy. If somebody says to me, Victoria, describe yourself, I'm like, I'm a ball of energy. That's me. That's me. My hair.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, that's me. Like, you see me, you think energy. And we are all energy. And depending on who we associate with, you don't even realize that this can have a huge impact on you. I remember very quickly, I remember my chiropractor, funnily enough, I was speaking to him today, and he's also a client of mine. I remember years ago, before I started my journey, my intuitive journey, going to him, and I think I was saying that I was getting headaches, and I'm not a headache kind of girl. I don't get headaches or stomach aches. I just don't. So I was like, I'm having headaches. It doesn't make sense. And he said to me, you're in a toxic relationship. I said, well, I'm not in a relationship. He goes, no, but you're friends. Yeah, with you and your friends. And I was like, and I remember sitting down at his desk, and James, he just rolled his eyes, and I said, so there's so-and-so person in my life, and so-and-so, and they're not toxic. They're really nice people, and so-and-so, and they're not toxic. And he went, that's not what I'm talking about. Everything that you're going through, everything that you're resisting and what they're resisting, it piles up into one, and it can affect you. Would you agree with that? And is there anything else you have to add on to that?
150%. Do you know how many people say to me
all those years ago?
I eat really clean and I've got an alkaline diet, but then if you look at their environment, or even the relationship they've got with themselves, and that's the fundamental one right there. If you haven't got self-worth and self-love and self-growth, you might as well live at McDonald's. And that's like swearing to me. Seriously. It's like, if you don't kind of look at the energetics, because people don't associate relationships or energy with a physical kind of manifestation, and I was saying this to somebody earlier on, that psychosomatically you can create so many issues in your body because it transfers and actually manifests in the physical. Just because it's up there doesn't mean that it doesn't come down here. And if you're healing at the most fundamental and cellular level, then energy is everything. Everything.
Yeah. So what did you do? What was the most, let me ask you, because obviously it's a very personal question, but what were the key relationships that you went, no?
Okay, so key relationships was my then partner, who after became my husband and then became my ex-husband, bless him. But also my father and my relationship, the kind of daughter-father relationship that was just not there. God rest his soul. I'm lucky that I got to kind of really heal that before he passed over. The mother-mother relationship also. And okay, so I was raised the only Black traveler. So I was raised on fairgrounds. Okay.
Oh wow.
And I know, right? I've had such an interesting journey. Seriously, my book is coming out. I Am Not My Diagnosis at the beginning of next year. It's all in there. It's all in there. So I was raised on fairgrounds, and the fairground community is a very, very close-knit community, and it doesn't allow insiders. So here comes this like little chocolate drop that, for whatever reason, was never really accepted. So I had a daily barrage of bigotedness and ignorance and prejudice that I had to deal with from friends, family. Some of the stuff that came out was really deep-seated. So that was a huge one, kind of dealing with what I'd been through as a child and just made to actually, get on with it. And then in the 70s, mixed race relationships were frowned upon.
Yeah.
you know.
How
So
dare you?
it's not only the stuff that my dad had to go through,
Yeah.
because you know he was now with a white woman and had a mixed race child, but it's also my mum had walked away from this massive community to have a relationship with a black man and a mixed race child, or half caste or half breed as we were known back then. So all the energy from both of them and this massive cultural kind of mismatch between a showman and, you know, my dad was born in Jamaica, came over, forced to come over when he was 17. So he never really wanted to be here anyway. So there was a lot of cultural clashing that I didn't know as a child, you know, really did affect me.
Wow.
So that was another kind of, I think they were the three main ones. And then first of all, it was my own, because I turned to food, and being raised on a fairground, we had hot dog stalls. So I could eat all the crap I wanted to. Okay. I had hot dogs for breakfast and toffee apples for dinner. And, you know,
Yeah.
so I was severely carrying way too much waste.
Yes.
And it's the way that I self-soothed through food.
Self-medicate.
So
yeah.
My journey into my own self-worth and a discovery of who I really was and who I wanted to be, you know, that was huge. So I think that they're the key ones, like those people that are closest to you, yourself, and you know, your direct partner.
Wow.
It's huge.
Yeah, something to really look at, something to, I mean, as somebody who's, you know, I've worked on my weight on and off for years, and it you know, the more you delve into this work, you see how much you self-medicate, because it's more comfortable, should we say, into that. And so I completely get it. And, you know, do more work on it now. But what's really interesting is the journey that I've been through. And every time I go through different journeys and I acknowledge and work through it, more stuff comes up. It's never ending, and it's never one thing. It's so interesting that you talk about your dad and the fact that he never wanted to come here, and just that resistance and what that could have energetically, the effect that could have on you, your mum, you know, the family, his experiences here, his health, your health. And people don't realize that, right? It's really interesting when
it's generational. It really is. The energy that we have, you know, it's generational. There are so many threads all the way back through, you know. And it's a lot of stuff that, you know, people just don't look at. They really don't.
No. And it takes someone, I believe, who doesn't just study this stuff, but is gifted with the knowledge to be able to do this. Because you can't just go into an exam room and pass an exam on this. You have to delve so much deeper. It's not academic at all. It's beyond logic. Because if you look at, and this is why after a lot of knocking on my door to surrender to my intuition and my intuitive calling, I now know that when I look at someone like you who has gone through all of this, I know that there's no logical explanation as to why you're sat here looking the way you do, but also doing what you do.
Yeah.
You know, I see the way women interact with you. I see when people come onto your lives and they speak and they interact, and how they embody pretty much what you're saying. And I know that these women wouldn't be doing that if you weren't helping them in some way. So for me, there's no logical explanation. It's beyond, you know, it's a divine inspiration.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing.
I say that I'm really fortunate that, you know, like you said, as a healer and as an intuitive, and being in the industry that I am now, because once I graduated from university with a first class degree, even though they told me I was never going to, with awards for my research, they told me to quit. I worked as a researcher for a member of parliament for 2 years, because that was my dream job, you know. And it was a friend of mine who wanted to go into physio that said to me, come and do a massage course, Carly. And I was like, massage? I'm academic. Seriously? And I did it for a year. She went on and on anyway. I did it. And by the end of it, it was just literally a light switch that was like, this is what I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
As much as I want to help people and kind of expose certain things about the system that we're living in, that's not the route to do it through. This is the route to do it through. So I quit my job. Everybody went, are you crazy? You fought so hard to be there and now you're just going to quit?
Yes.
And you bought a massage couch and you've had some Vistaprint business cards and now that's it?
Yeah. It's so interesting you're saying this, because I had a conversation this morning, and I'm not going to allude too much to it, but it was all about the work that I do hands-on, and how, you know, finding that one thing that you can use to add into your toolbox that will mirror everything else that you do. So a bit of an aha moment for me, but I'm not going to elaborate on that. I'll speak to you about it another time. But so so if people come to you now, if somebody came to you now, so, you know, I've told people to look out for your book. So, you know, but most importantly, if they came to you now and said, you know what, I can really resonate with Carly, how can you help them? How do you help people?
So depending on kind of what ailments they come to me with, or, you know, whereabouts they are in life, it's one of the beauty about my retreats that we haven't been able to do this year. But I basically take people out of their everyday routine and kind of stop them in their tracks and say, okay, do you know what? If you could do anything in the world, money is no object, time is no object, responsibilities that you think you have is no object. What would you be doing? You know, and most of them go, I don't know. Well, this is the time to question, because you will never know unless you ask yourself. And the more you ask, the more it'll come through, you know. And for those that say, oh, I'd be doing this or I'd be doing that, I'm like, okay, let's make a plan. And we set out, and I call it a flight plan. And we work through, I kind of reverse engineer, where do we want to be this time in 12 months? And then I help them reverse engineer it back to literally, what do I need to do today that takes me one step closer to where I need to be in 12 months?
Beautiful. So the retreats will come.
They'll be back next year.
In the meantime, how else are you helping people? Because I know you're busy, so I know you're still helping people.
So busy. So I'm seeing an awful lot of digestive issues at the moment. Loads of digestive issues, and it's two things. One, because most people aren't living their purpose or haven't found their purpose, or they're swallowing their emotion, like pushing it down, and it's just been festering in their gut. And then obviously with the food that people are eating, because it's all about convenience. Nobody's got time to cook. You know, they're not. It's just rush, and they're just chemically laden. You know, I think we're just nutritionally so starved as a society. So I do a range of different intolerance testing. I do vitamin and mineral analysis, and then we do food planning, and we kind of work out all of that. But ultimately, that's kind of like one aspect of it, but I like to dig deeper than that. So some people will come to me and go, oh, you know, it might be IBS. I'm bloated. I'm like, okay. So I do all the kind of the scientific stuff that gives them the hard right. You can't have dairy, for example, or, you know, wheat is off the list. And then I say, so what have you been hiding? What aren't you expressing? And then so that's it. The tears come, and then how did you know? And then we can get to work. Then that's when the real work starts.
Yeah, I hear you. It's really funny because I get clients who come to me and go, I don't know what's wrong, but just take a look at me. And I'm like, okay, we're going to start from there, are we? And it's the same thing, how further you dig deep and dig deep and dig deep until you find a core purpose. But have you realized, it's funny how you talk about finding your purpose, because that for me, I honestly believe that's why I was put on this earth, to help people find their purpose. Have you realized that if you haven't found your purpose, that there is just this sense of what the hell is going on?
Yeah. And, you know, especially in this year of this massive energetic elevation that we're going through, so many people are like, for the first time, I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't know what I want to do.
Yes.
Like, yes.
Yes.
Come on.
Isn't it amazing? I think it's amazing for people like you and I, because now the clients are just coming as opposed to us looking for the clients, because now people are just going, I don't know. Like, I've just had a moment to think, and I know that I don't want to do this job for another 20 years, another 5 years, another 10 years. And
Totally.
So I know you've talked about digestive systems, but in this, especially in this time with the virus happening and everything else, what else has been really prominent with your clients, do you think?
Stress levels, and helping them just to kind of put things into perspective.
Yeah.
So helping them with their different stress techniques and kind of turning off the news. People, if you're still watching the news and you're wondering why you're having palpitations and can't sleep, this is why. And kind of like the radiation, the energy, right? And helping people really protect themselves and boost their system from within, teaching them people the basics of our immune system. It's there for a job, you know. It's the most advanced defense mechanism on this planet. But systematically it's being attacked and being weakened by, you know, let's not get into that too deep, but certain guidelines that are stripping. And there's no wonder people are getting sick, regardless of any virus out there, you know?
Sorry. No, sorry about that. No, I say to my clients a lot that there comes a time when you just have to take responsibility for yourself.
Amen.
I remember there was an announcement in the first lockdown, or prior to the first lockdown, that said, oh, you can go to work now. And everybody went a day early and then blamed the Prime Minister for not giving a clear message. And my question was, is it safe to go out? Where are you going? Where are you going? If he had said jump over a cliff on Tuesday, would you have done that? Or do you take precautions in the best way that you know how and take your responsibility rather than blaming somebody else? It was just an interesting, you know, maybe I'm not giving it the full context, but anybody that remembers that moment, it went on the news for about a week. And the only reason why I know that, I don't have a television, but the only reason why I know that was because it kept on coming up on my feed on my phone going, Prime Minister's been told this. And I'm like,
even that, the fact that, you know, this is for the first time, and come on, let's be honest, we have record levels of cancer, record levels of obesity, record levels of heart disease, record levels of so many things that all could be classed, if we're judging it by this, as epidemics, you know, as pandemics. But never before in history have we been bombarded with the same message over and over and over. It's almost like we're being programmed into panic. But yeah, and I think, again, going back to that, as a society that likes a quick fix, we like to give our responsibility over. We've been programmed that way, you know. Teachers are there to teach. We're not here to educate our own children. Doctors are there to heal us because we can't do that ourselves. Police are there to protect us because, you know, we're all so weak and feeble, you know. And actually the idea of taking responsibility is so alien to us right across the board. Right across the board.
Yes, I was watching a live this afternoon, and a woman said, I need so-and-so to tell me about my business. And my thought process was, but you already know how amazing this is. You already know you can get guidance, but you're looking for approval, which then you tend to end up sabotaging yourself with. And this is why I love reconnecting women, especially with their intuition, because I just believe that it just puts us so much more in touch with our higher selves, that we don't need somebody else to tell us what's right and what isn't.
No, we know.
Yeah. So let's go into Nature's Pharmacy. I just want to know, what happens in Nature's Pharmacy? Do you want to tell people? Because I'm telling them to look for you in there. So you're going to have followers.
I've got kind of like a few branches to my healing tree. Okay. So I started in clinic at the Healing Touch Academy. So that's kind of like my hands-on work. And that's where I kind of fix chapped nerves, frozen shoulders, all that kind of stuff. And I found myself after a few years that I was giving that much nutritional advice out, because for me it's no good me kind of fixing something here and then you going home and doing exactly the same thing and eating rubbish and not having enough fluid. So I qualified as a nutritional therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I just found that I had this whole influx of people that just came for nutritional advice. So Nature's Pharmacy was born.
Yeah.
And I was just finding myself more and more, there's only so much I can do here in clinic, right? Because time is limited. And when you kind of work one-to-one, you've got a really small ceiling, right? Yeah. So I took Nature's Pharmacy online, and the main platform to find me on is Facebook. There are other ones, but that's where I am most of the time.
Okay.
And we do everything from, we've got a book club, we've got a film club. When we read together, we share different exercises together. You know, one of our last reads was called Energetic Squared, and I'm just teaching people helping people to remember, because it's not me teaching them, I'm helping them to remember that just how magical they are, you know, and how you can actually manipulate this energy in both ways by just thinking the wrong thing all the time over and over. Or if we just kind of flip that and think the right thing over and over, you can change everything. And then during this kind of I prefer to say, timed out rather than lockdown, because you know what? I've never been locked down. I've been timed out, and I quite enjoyed my time out.
I like the attitude as you start talking about it and stuff.
Seriously, never been locked down. So I launched the Homegrown Show, where I just wanted to help local business owners that kind of make, form, grow their own products to sell. So then pretty much like what you're doing now, you know, I get them on and we have a chat about it, and I help them to boost their sales. And I love that. You know, it's just about giving back.
Yeah.
And then just daily inspiration, you know, if you kind of woke up and you're having a really crap day, most people kind of say, Carly, I'm so glad that you're consistent on here, because I know that I can just jump on, check the page, and there's something that's going to actually make me go, do you know what? That makes so much sense.
Wow. Beautiful. I love it. I love it. God. So what else? So we know where people can find you. So for those of you who are listening to this on audio, if you go to Nature's Pharmacy on Facebook, you can find Carly, and then she's also got her new book, which is I am not my diagnosis. Is that right? So
yes, that's right.
On here, so that we get to see it on the scrolling bit at the bottom. So you get to do that. And when is this book out? Do we know?
So I am just in the final closing bits of it, because I was fortunate enough to win a Hay House competition.
You did. I remember that.
It's
oh my God.
So let me give you the story. I started working on it a while ago, because so many people have said to me, Carly, when's your book coming out? Your story, it needs to be told, right? And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to start. But I am a dyslexic genius, okay? I can talk forever, but put a pen and paper in front of me, there's spelling mistakes, there's grammar mistakes, right? And I'm like, okay, so I need to work with somebody. And one of my clients had that same thing, like, I don't know what to do after I retire. I was like, what do you want to do? I love to write. So she's now a published author, so she became my editor.
Wow.
So bit by bit, we've been working through it. And one day I said to her during one of our meetings, just to let you know that one day Hay House are going to publish me. And she was like, oh, Carly, I love your ambition, but let's just focus on, you know, on doing the self-publishing first. And I was like, no, that's cool, but I'm just letting you know, be prepared, because Hay House are coming.
Wow.
About 3 months later, another client of mine went, Carly, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, oh, funny, yeah, I'm kind of, you know, I'm working on it now. And she's like, Hay House are running a competition. I was like, really? So I entered this competition anyway, kind of like, again, divinely laid before me. I had fortunate enough to get through stage 1, had an amazing weekend with some really, really amazing authors, and got partnered with David Hamilton, who's an amazing author. And, you know, he is like one of my mentors, like Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza, that look at the epigenetics and our ability to actually manipulate our cells, but from a scientific viewpoint as well. So he became my mentor for 6 months. Now, I didn't win first prize, but David has offered to not only endorse my book, but to write my foreword as well.
Wow.
And, you know, it's just like the contacts that I've made and the pre-orders for the book that I've received just by going through that journey.
Amazing.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I remember when you got it and stuff, and I was so excited for you. I was so excited. I was just like really ecstatic. Now, I've not been on your group for a while, even though I pop in and out. So I've not followed, I've not listened to, I think the last thing I listened to was something about Mercury, sort of like Mercury not being that great for you and anything else.
So what I'm doing with the team now is helping them to do a heavy metal cleanse.
Right.
Again, it's another way of really boosting your immune system, right? Yes. So I'm basically, because a lot of people don't know what fluoride does to the system, right? No. And it's in your toothpaste every day. Yes, they don't realize that the mercury in your silver fillings, you know, is a neurotoxin, and it's causing all sorts of issues in the brain. Yes. So I've been doing kind of like a spotlight on different heavy metals that are in our system. Yes. So when I'm saying to people, okay, come on, let's do this cleanse together, they know why they're doing it. Yes. You know? Because often I think people just jump onto fad diets and they go, yeah, I want to lose this amount of weight, but they're not looking at the health. They're not looking at it from long term. It's like, once I've lost this weight, I'll go back to normal. Yes. No, this isn't a diet. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, completely. So I remember ages ago, you mentioned, did you get your own channel at one point?
Yeah, so you've done your research, girlie.
No, so yeah, well, I have done my research because you're coming on my show, but I do remember as well. Yeah.
No, it's not my own channel. So I got asked to be a co-host of Real Talk TV, which is a community television station based here in Nottingham. Right. So I'm a co-host of Real Talk TV now, because I am so crazy busy, and you know, I only have a limited amount of time that I can dedicate. Sure. So I am a co-host, and I've done a number of shows with them, and you know, I've kind of given them a particular amount of time on a monthly basis. Right. I can't be on there every week because I've, you know, just the research. I think some people don't realize how much research we put into putting these kind of shows together, right? You know, I don't just kind of think of a subject and then go, right, I'm going to talk about this today. No, we go in and we research and we kind of get all this information together. So what you see maybe 10, 15 minutes in front of camera might have taken us 4 or 5 hours, you know, behind scenes. So yeah, but it was super honored to kind of be highlighted and go, Carly, will you come and be a co-host? Yes, please.
And it's on real time TV. So is that online?
Real Talk TV. Yep. So realtalktv.com, I'm going to say. It's got its own website, and it's also on Facebook, and it's also on YouTube. There are lots of different handles. So yeah, Real Talk TV. Again, I guess if you search for me, Carly, if you kind of do Carly Mellors-Blair and then go Real Talk TV, it might come up.
I'll type. So whenever I'm looking down, it's because I'm just making sure that we've got some scrolls at the bottom so that people can find you as much as possible. So finally, no, actually, we've got 2 questions. So what are your tips that you could give to my listeners and I to take away from your vast amount of experience? If we were going to be, I don't know, assume you've had 60,000 clients, which I'm sure you have. If we were going to be 61,000 or whatever and stuff, what would be the advice that you'd give us today?
Find your joy and stay there. Whatever lights you up, whatever you can't get enough of, that's what you're supposed to be doing more of. Once you find and stand in your joy, everything else falls into place. It gives you more motivation to eat better. It gives you more motivation to go and find, you know, employment or work or start a business that you want to do. But without joy, none of it makes sense.
Amen. Amen. And finally, because we're all talking about nature and food and everything else, what's your best healing food? What's your favorite healing food that you
oh my
know,
God, so many.
The one that you could go, oh my God, that's just amazing. That's the one thing.
Oh, that's such a hard question. Oh my goodness gracious me. Okay, so I couldn't live without lemons.
Okay. I've got
yep. Lemon water is, and it's one of the first things that kind of really kick-started me on my journey of cleansing my liver, cleansing my kidneys, and really kind of helping them. Yeah. Also, you know, giving me this kind of glow, you know, it's glows from within, you know, it's kind of like, this is a reflection because my liver's happy and my kidneys are happy. Yeah. Okay, I'm blessed with good genes, but yes, it's about what you put inside. So yeah, lemons, but you know, anything plant-based. Yes. Anything plant-based.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I've actually got some fresh turmeric there at the moment, and I'm going to juice it and have it with and I just have it with some warm water, just to sort of like get rid of any sort of like inflammation or anything.
Powerhouse.
Yeah.
And that's why I say that was such a hard question, because we could have done a whole hour just on food, right?
Well, you're going to have to come back, because this was more sort of like for people to get to see you and sort of like say hello, and for people to get to understand you. But also, you know, for me, I could do another hour with you, and you know, our busy schedules don't allow it. But
I'd be honored to come back.
I just, you know, no, thank you. It's so lovely to see someone else doing the food aspect, but from a whole different element, and body aspect and movement aspects and everything else. And like I say, your journey has just been so inspiring. If one person can connect to this story, I think our job here is done. So
exactly. 100%.
For anybody that listens to this, by all means, share your comments. There'll be a space where you can put your comments below. If you want to get Carly, yes, you know, you can get her on Nature's Pharmacy on Facebook. You can also find her at Real Talk TV. And if you still can't find her, then message me and I will hook you guys up. But for now, Carly, thank you so much for coming. And it's been an absolute honor. And thanks for being part of my life, because it's a gift.
Thank you again. You know, it's my pleasure, my purpose, and my passion. So thank you for having me on. I love watching your journey and everything that you're doing over there as well. The whole travel journey was amazing, seriously, and everything that you did over there, and then coming back and just kind of starting everything fresh, and wow, you know. So I'd like to say, you know, inspiration. And if we make a difference to one person's lives, then our job's done.
Thanks so much, my love. Thank you. Right, guys, we will see you at the next talk, where we'll have another inspiring guest. But until now, or for now, should I say, thanks so much, Carly. Speak to you guys soon. Take care.
Take care.